What's up, guys? Blaine Duncan here from Halloween Lives. This is episode 82, and here I am joined once again by my brother, Austin. What's up, dude? We're here. It's October. Welcome to episode 82.
It feels good, man. I'm getting more and more into the Halloween spirit as the days in October keep going here, and the big day just keeps getting closer and closer. I put in my PTO for Thursday and Friday, made sure I'm gonna have all that off, and I'm feeling good. It's getting closer, man. How are you doing,
dude? I'm doing great. I mean, I I started getting into like the Halloween spirit probably in late July. Like that's just typically when it like hits me. I don't know why. I think like you get one day where, at least here in Minnesota where we're from, you get like a day where there's just like a little glimmer of fall. Like it always happens. Seems like it happens in late July, early August, where just a little bit of a cooler day. The breeze feels a little bit different. You might notice some of the leaves are starting to kind of change a little bit, maybe getting a few leaves falling here and there. And next thing you know, it's September and here we are in October. We've really had good weather. I mean, this isn't going to be a weather show, but we've had really good weather up here where we're from up until recently. Like the last couple of days have finally been cool, but it's been hot up here, which is not normal for us, no matter any time of the year, but especially this time of the year. So I think getting like those vibes of getting like more like the weather and everything that contributes to sort of the overall autumn or October feeling, I think that really helps. But it's been another good week of watching horror movies. We'll give our rundown here in just a little bit. But yeah, man, I'm excited. We're closing in on the day. I think, what is this? As of the recording of this episode, I think we're like 17 days away from Halloween, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be here before we know it. And unfortunately, it's going to be gone before we know it too. So we're trying to soak up as much as we can because we love two things on this show. What are they, Austin?
Halloween and Halloween, baby.
That's right. We are Halloween Lives, and we're here to talk about Halloween. But, dude, let's talk a little bit about what movies we've watched over the last couple of weeks. We've been doing that since we came back and did our little return. We kind of we wanted to update people on movies that we're watching and things that we're doing just because it's Halloween season. And I know I like to hear from other people what they're watching and what they're doing that kind of keeps them in the spooky Halloween spirit. So what movies have you watched since episode 81?
Yeah, so episode 81, right before we filmed, I was just about to dive into Halloween Ends. Watch that one again, man. And first of all, one thing that I did want to point out about Halloween Ends is, say what you want about this story if you don't like the way things turned out. I just saw another big YouTuber put out a how Halloween Ends ruined the character of Michael Myers. There's always going to be those takes, but one thing that you notice right away in that movie is cinematically absolutely one of the best looking horror movies I've ever seen. Everything is very picturesque. I don't know who the director of photography was on Halloween Ends, but whoever it was, my hat's off to you, because that was something that I've noticed just because I've been watching a lot of different movies this October. And, Halloween or horror movies kind of get a rap as sort of a B budget or lower tier as far as like cinematography goes. Halloween Ends is absolutely an exception to that case. That's one area I don't think I've talked on a whole lot about is the cinematography of that movie. But overall, absolutely still like it. Absolutely love it. And, I think I'm somewhere tied between 2018 and Ends. 2018 just has so many good memories for me. But Ends, hate me if you want. I love that movie. But after that, I switched gears into a different timeline, one that, on this show I've said multiple times is like my favorite timeline. I'm not sure if that's necessarily what I think at this point. But I did watch Halloween H2O and then Resurrection. Have to say, Halloween H2O, love so much about the movie. I think Jamie Lee Curtis's character, the Jamie or Laurie Strode / Carrie Tate in that film, is so much more of a realistic take on what I think a character like Laurie Strode would end up being she's in academia, she's trying to move on. And she still struggles with things like addiction that you see in Halloween 2018. I just think it's handled a lot more tastefully, a lot more realistically. And then after that great movie, they followed it up with Halloween Resurrection, which I watched again. And, I actually saw you. We got dinner a couple nights ago, and I was like, man, I have trouble finding redeemable qualities in Halloween Resurrection. I will say the mask has grown on me, even though it's got a Cupid's bow or a upper lip the size of, the Panama Canal. It's still a cool look for Michael. But other than that, man, there is just not a lot going on in that film that I like. After that, the last 3 days, I've watched Tales of Halloween, which is a great kind of anthology short horror film, which there's a lot of, like VHS, obviously Tales of Halloween,
Trick or Treat,
Trick or
Candy,
yes. Lots of there's just so many of these anthology films, and I think horror kind of lends itself to that a little bit, where it's kind of got something for everybody in those films. So that's a good one. I did rewatch The Exorcist Believer, which I have come onto the show stating I did not like last year when I went and saw it in theaters. Talked with Marie of Marie Plays It All, and the Not a Strong Start podcast, and she also said that she is not a big fan of that film. I will say, after Blaine had told me, give it another watch, I liked it a lot. I think I did find more that I liked in this one. I still think the first half of the movie, up until really the exorcism, is the strongest part of the movie. I think it's just a really cool way to set it up. It's almost like if you ever seen the movie Prisoners, which is an awesome movie. I love that movie outside of horror. It's more of a thriller. It's kind of like Prisoners meets The Exorcist, and I liked that bit. And then finally, last night watched a recommendation from you, Blaine, The First Omen, which came out this year. I am not privy to the Omen movies of the 70s and 80s, so it was interesting for me to see this. Again, another like very beautifully shot movie. It did share a lot of things with Immaculate, which I watched earlier this year. I think it was a better movie than Immaculate. It also shared a lot with Rosemary's Baby, which I think we're going to be talking about later on here in the show, but did really like that movie too. I, definitely got to go check out the Omen films to see what this Damien character is up to. So
awesome.
That's what I've been up to. What about you, dude?
Dude, I've been on a run lately. I have been on a serious run. I've watched a ton of movies in the last week. I'm actually so we each keep count like how many films we watch in the month of October. I don't know why. I think it's something that I started like a long time ago, and then you started at some point too. I'm at 27 for the month. That's pretty damn good considering today is the 14th. The day that we're filming this is the 14th. So I'm on a good run, but I'm not going to go through. I'll go through all the films I watched. I'm not going to go into detail, but since since last week's episode, I have watched Halloween H2O, which I do want to mention. I do have two hot takes that I'm gonna provide at the end of kind of my summary of what I've watched over the last week.
Love it.
So Halloween H2O, saw it, watched it, liked it, loved it. Immaculate, which I know that you had watched earlier in the month, or maybe it was last month, whatever it was a fan. Really, I thought it was a decent film. Didn't like love it, didn't hate it, just kind of like, it was worth my time to watch an hour and a half long film. The Village, love that movie. Probably my favorite M. Night Shyamalan's movie. It's probably my favorite of them all. Signs is my favorite. This is The Village.
Signs is a good movie.
Dude, Signs is awesome. I could watch that film all day. Like anytime. That's like one of those movies. Twister is one of those movies. Yep. Signs is one of those movies. Saving Private Ryan is one of those movies. Like if I see those movies on TV, I stop and I watch it. So The Innkeepers, which I encourage you to watch as well. It's a movie directed by Ty West. I'm a big fan of his work. I love House of the Devil, which I did watch as well in this, and we'll talk about that in here in a second. But The Innkeepers, if you've not seen it, go check it out. A little bit. I mean, Ty West has like a little bit of a different vibe to his films. They're slow burning, but I liked it nonetheless. I thought it was pretty good. Body Bags, which is a John Carpenter film from the 90s. I think it came out like 93 or 94 or something like that. Another horror anthology film. It's fun. It's campy. It's cheesy. It kind of has like that Tales from the Crypt vibe to it. John Carpenter plays like the like morgue. I don't even want to call him like, I don't even want to call him like a medical examiner, because I think that's like, he's supposed to be the medical examiner, but there's a twist at the end. I don't want to give it away for anybody who's not seen it, but he works at the morgue. He's at the morgue.
Cool.
And it's kind of fun to just see him as not only a director, but see him actually in character, acting in this film. Grave Encounters, love that film. Can't say enough about it. I think it's one of the best found footage films in recent history. The Halloween Tree. Love the Halloween Tree. We've talked about a little bit on this episode. The Halloween Tree means, I think it was last episode we talked about it. Halloween Tree means a lot to both of us. It's a movie that you and I both grew up on as kids. So I had to watch that one. Halloween 2018 kicked off the David Gordon Green trilogy. Watched Halloween 2018. We can get into that a little while later. House of the Devil, just mentioned that. Ty West did watch that. Hell House LLC.
Yeah.
We should talk about this film for a second because, dude, this is for anyone who hasn't seen Hell House. So I want to say I was somewhat skeptical about this movie when I first saw it, because the idea to me behind this film, it seemed very fake, seemed very cheesy. I watched the trailer and I was kind of like, I'm not going to like this movie. I'm going to put it off. And it's been out since, I think it came out in 2015 or something. It's been out for a very long time.
Yep.
I put it off. Well, last month, or maybe it was the month before, I can't remember. I watched it. I was just like, I was looking for something to watch, couldn't figure anything out. I was like, fuck. All right, I'll watch Hell House. I'll give it a shot. And I was blown away. I was like, damn, this movie is going into my October rotation. Great Halloween vibes and imagery and everything. I'm like, you feel like it's October in this film. Like, they just do a really good job of it. I recommended it to you. You watched it. You also liked it. And dude, I'm a fan of Hell House. There's no question. I will say I did see the sequel. I watched that today, and that's one of the films. Giant thumbs down. That was terrible. Like, that was a waste of an hour and a half. I won't go into the details of it, but I was not a fan. I heard that the prequel is decent. I think that's number 4.
Yeah.
So I might try to sneak that one in if I'm looking for something to watch this month. I might try to sneak that one in. We'll have to see. But did not like the sequel at all. And then last night, I watched Rosemary's Baby, which I had never seen. I couldn't believe in all these years of watching horror, I had never seen Rosemary's Baby, but I finally watched it. And it was decent. I wasn't a huge fan of the way that it ended. I know you and I kind of talked a little bit today. You love the ending. I was kind of like, there was sort of a lot of buildup, and then I didn't feel like really anything happened. But definitely a film that was ahead of its time. And, just like the dream sequences in that film were jacked up. Like, it made me feel like I was dreaming, just really, really good. And just a really awesome plot. And just this idea of this girl who gets pregnant with the devil's baby. And, it's a great film. If you've not seen it, if you're like me and you've been a horror fan and you've not seen it, you're definitely missing out. I'm glad I finally watched it. I've been wanting to watch it for years and years and years. But there's always been like, but I want to see this movie. But I really want to see this movie. And last night I was like, you know what? I feel like watching something old, and I feel like watching something I've never seen before. Rosemary's Baby. That was what I watched. Today started out my day with Halloween Resurrection. I've got a hot take for Halloween Resurrection. I'll talk about that here in just a minute. Then I watched Hell House 2, which I just mentioned. And finally, Bad Candy, which was a film that I had wanted to see for quite some time. Similar thing, right? It's been out for a few years. I think it came out 2020, maybe something like that.
Yeah, it was recent.
Corey Taylor from Slipknot, who's the lead singer of Slipknot, he's like a radio DJ in the film. So, I mean, a fairly decent sized name, but it's a Halloween anthology film. And very much along the same lines of like Tales of Halloween, has those same exact vibes. Really good cinematography, really good imagery. Like, the imagery in this is definitely like on par with Trick or Treat, which I think is like top tier Halloween imagery. I would say, Bad Candy is basically neck and neck with that. I did after doing a little bit more research on this film today because I was like, man, this was really good. And like, I'm surprised it's not bigger. I read an interview with the directors, and it's I don't know if they're a girlfriend, boyfriend, or boyfriend, or a husband, wife team, whatever. It doesn't matter. But they directed this film together, and I think he was being serious when he said it. But he said the budget for this movie was only $90,000, which, assuming that is accurate, that is like chump change. Like most movies that we see that are in the theater probably have a $90,000 like food.
Yeah, I was gonna say catering.
Like, yeah, catering alone probably costs the film $90,000. So to do what they did, the way that it's shot, the way that it's edited, very, very good. I was very impressed, and even more impressed when I was doing research afterwards and found out that it was only a $90K, budget. I thought that was incredible because any movie, and I have a very, very small, like very, very small, I've dipped my toe in this field a little bit, right into the Hollywood world with the docuseries that I worked on. $90,000 is nothing. Doing anything for like less than $1 million is unheard of. Like, you just don't hear of these kind of movies being made anymore. And they did a really, really good job. So kudos to them. I actually sent the director a message on Instagram, and I was like, dude, congratulations. This was freaking awesome. And he wrote back.
No way.
Yeah. So it was like, man, I was super happy I watched it. Would definitely encourage anyone who is looking for something fun to watch, go out and watch it. Bad Candy. It's really good. And like I said, the imagery is top notch. But do you want to hear my two Halloween hot takes?
Yeah, I'm ready for them. Because you got two. Don't you have two from H2O and one for Resurrection?
No, I just have. So I didn't do a hot take for 2018 because I was kind of like, I'm not feeling a hot take. I don't have anything coming out of this film. But here's what I will say. And I've been a little wishy-washy with Halloween H2O in the past. Mm-hmm. I respect it. I love it. But I've kind of, over time, it's sort of lost a little bit of its sparkle or a little bit of its shine for whatever reason.
Totally.
What I will say is, watching this film again this year, Halloween H2O is as close to a perfect sequel as you can get. And I actually wrote down underneath, I said, if I had to show someone any Halloween sequel, anything outside of the original, I would probably show them H2O after rewatching it again for the umpteenth time. It was just, watching it, I was just like, it really is like a really good movie. Like the storyline is really good. It's a quality storyline. So even if you're like not a huge fan of horror films and you just really don't get the whole like horror thing, and you're not super impressed with Michael Myers and Laurie Strode and Carrie, like this whole thing, the story itself is really good. Like, it's just a really well done film. The script and the writing is very well, was well done. The actors did a great job at delivering their lines. There's really no cringeworthy moments in that entire film that you're just like, dude, how did they slip that line in it? Like that, there's none of that. And so that was my hot take for H2O. It's literally like the perfect sequel in this entire franchise.
I am so happy to hear that because I've said many times on the show, I know, like, Marie, we're bringing you up again. That's your favorite in the franchise, but I love Halloween H2O. I think it is one of the best in the franchise, and I think that's a great way to put it. Is like, if you showed somebody who's never seen the Halloween movies, they would watch that and still gain an appreciation for it. It's also one of the shortest Halloween movies.
It's like an hour 15.
Yeah, and they pack so much into that runtime. I think it's wonderful. I think LL Cool J's character, the Ronnie, I think is his name. Yep. He's one of my favorite like side characters because he's not just there for like comic relief, or he's kind of got multiple sides to him, or a three-dimensional character, and like kind of gives you somebody to root for outside of everything else that's going on. The worst part of about that movie is John Tate's hairline or haircut. But everything else, man, and his girlfriend's eyebrows in that movie. What the hell was going on?
Yeah, man, it was 1998. There was weird stuff happening to eyebrows back then.
literally sketched on her face.
Yeah,
They're pencils.
They look like doll eyebrows. Like they legit look like Santa's elf took a doll and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna put eyebrows on this thing." That was what it was. So I agree. Michelle Williams, glad you. Well, I haven't seen Michelle Williams in any movie in a long time, but hopefully she got her eyebrows figured out because they were not good. And I'm not like I got great eyebrows. Not really you. I mean, we're like our eyebrows are just average eyebrows, but Michelle Williams at H2O, get it together, Michelle.
Nowadays, she's got beautiful eyebrows. Just
fantastic.
Let the record show.
That's right. All right. So my next hot take is regarding everyone's favorite Halloween film, Halloween Resurrection. And here's what I'm about to say. And I'm going to guess you're going to disagree with this, and as are many of our listeners. But I'm going to say this, and then I want to step back, and I want to really think about what I said here. I want to really examine and take a deep dive into this hot take on Halloween Resurrection. You ready for it?
Yes, sir.
If you took out Busta Rhymes' character of Freddie Harris and you replaced him with a more serious actor and a more serious character, the movie would be regarded as one of the better Halloween sequels in the franchise. So what I realized watching this today is that, and I've said this before on the show, I like the storyline of Halloween Resurrection. I do. The way Laurie dies at the beginning isn't my favorite, but I understand for that time why they did what they did. That was actually her request. She said, "Kill me off. I don't want to do this anymore." I could have thought of a million different ways to kill off Laurie Strode's character than having her be like some mute who lives in a insane asylum who then, decides that she's been like planning this whole thing and trap for Michael for the last several years and whatever. I could have probably thought of something much easier to do and a better way to kill her off, but that's neither here nor there because it's such a small fraction of the film. Okay. But when I think of Halloween Resurrection and I think of all the shit that I hate about that movie, it all ties back to one character, and it's Freddie Harris, played by Busta Rhymes. And every scene that he's in, motherfucker, there it is. Every scene that he's in, that scared the shit out of me, by the way. I almost like jumped. I was like, Freddie! But I thought Freddie was coming in to kick my door down. But every scene that he's in, I'm always like, oh my God, why would they write this? Why would they do this to a Halloween film? If you took him out of those scenes, replaced him with a more serious actor, more serious character who still embodied like that dangertainment, attitude that he had and that he was bringing to it, where he really didn't give a shit about what was happening with other people. He was just trying to sell a show and make a name for himself. If you had that character, but just replaced him with somebody who wasn't Busta Rhymes and maybe took away some of the lines, like the trick or treat motherfucker, the karate thing, like if you took some of that stuff out, it's not a bad film. Like it's really not. I love the idea of this happening in the Myers house. They're making the Myers house be a character again in this franchise. And they're putting a group of people, which for that time, that was like the hot thing. It's like Big Brother meets, Halloween. They're putting all these young, hot couple or people into this house and having them film themselves. That was a sign of the times in 2002. Reality TV was becoming a huge thing. The internet was like booming at that time and just becoming like, she's got like the Palm Pilot thing, right? I mean, that was what that world was like back then. I love that. I think that's a great idea. It's different than anything that's ever been done in this franchise before. And if you took Busta Rhymes' character out of this and replaced him with somebody who was just a little bit better and somebody you could take a little bit more seriously, I think this would be a great movie. Kill me. What do you think? Am I nuts? Am I crazy?
I see my problem. Yeah, you're crazy. First of all, okay. I don't think that this all boils down to Busta Rhymes. I think there's like the scene with Freddie and Sarah talking when Sarah's like, "Yo, I gotta get out of this." And Freddie's kind of like, hey, like he shows like a more human side of himself. And he's like, we're just trying to put this together. You're the only real thing here. I like that interaction. I think it's like one of the only well acted parts of the movie. I think Freddie's character is certainly a big problem with it, but overall, like there's so many characters in that movie that are just like caricatures. Like there's like the artsy, very like social sciences girl. There's the chef guy that everything he's like, oh, Michael had a bad diet and that's what leads to this. And he's got the night. Everything he talks about has to relate to food and some. It's written like a children's TV show, like a cartoon is the only way I could describe it. And I did want to mention, I said there was nothing redeemable. Brad Laree is absolutely one of the best Michael Myers. I would put him up there with anybody. But I think a big problem for me as Blaine disrobes is the
it's hot in here, man. It's hot in these rhinos.
I think it's just the acting ensemble that's with the whole crowd. Do I think if they replaced him with somebody a little bit more serious? Yeah, maybe, because maybe it would kind of fix the chemistry of the whole thing. It's kind of like Sarah and I guess Deckard are like the only two characters you can really take seriously in the movie. But so maybe putting in like a kind of you almost need like a Sam Loomis-esque figure in a lot of these movies, and Laurie kind of played that in the last one. To make it work. So I see what you're saying there. But how would you get the incredible scene of Michael walking in or running into Busta in the mask? And
but that's what I'm saying. Like, remove all of that. Like, get rid of, make that character a more serious character, that you're losing that, like, that rinky-dink bullshit that you see from Busta Rhymes. And I think your point, like when he talks to Sarah in that scene, when she comes to his like hotel room or whatever, because you know, like they have that really good serious interaction. And I agree, but there were just so many bad lines that came out of that dude's mouth in that film. Even like when he like has the blowhorn thing at like they're like getting ready to go in the house. He says something like, up in this motherfucker. Like he says it under his breath, and it was just like, it's like, dude, what is this? You know, and then let the dangertainment begin, and then he hits the horn. It's like, I think if you and I get what you're saying about like the characters, because it's definitely like the characters themselves were meant to be those characters. Like that was what they needed. And that was like a sign of the times too. Like if you take from like, you know, even look at like Scream had specific characters that they were like the dude who worked at the video store. I don't remember what his name is now.
He's like a nerdy.
Like, yeah. I mean, like they needed that guy. They needed the dude who was like super into horror movies and knew how this whole thing was going to play out. And like they needed that. They needed the chick, you know, who was like the, I'm trying to think of her name now. I'm not even garage door chick with the, you know, the Pocoyote things when the garage door scene happens. You know what I'm talking about? Like they needed her to be like the dumb, like it's just a character thing, right? I mean, they're trying to build these characters, and in this film they did it. And I agree. They're a little bit cartoonish, or, you know, whatever you say, caricatures of themselves. I totally understand and see where you're coming from. I'm just saying, like, if you took Freddy out of it, I would enjoy that movie a hell of a lot more if you replaced him with a much more serious version of that character who, you know, wasn't wearing, I mean, again, take away the Michael, he's wearing the Michael mask thing and everything like that, like terrible. Like, I don't know why Rick Rosenthal ever thought that was a good idea to put that in the film. The trick or treat motherfucker, that is without question the worst line in this entire franchise. There's nothing worse. I would rather listen to Evil Dies Tonight on in eternity versus trick or treat motherfucker. I hate that line. Absolutely.
That's a hot take,
dude. That is a hot take. I've got 3 hot takes, I guess, tonight, but I would much rather listen to that. I hate that line. So for me, call me crazy. I would rather, if you took out Freddy out of that entire movie, replace him with a better character, I think we would have a much, much better sequel that would be much more well respected by the fans. Just a thought. There it is. So there are the movies that we have watched so far. We obviously didn't talk about the movies that we watched prior to that because we did that on the previous 2 episodes. So if you guys want to know what you're missing out on or what we watched before that, go back and watch episode 80 and 81 and check it out. That's where we're at so far. I'm at 20. What did I say? 25 movies, 27 movies.
I think you said 27, and
27.
Yeah, I'm at 16. I got some catching up to do.
Step it up.
I know.
I'm ashamed to call you my brother. All right, we're going to talk tonight. We're going to get in and talk about some Halloween stuff. How about that? We are Halloween Lives after all. And we talk about two things. We love two things in the show. What are they again, Austin?
Halloween and Halloween.
Gives me goosebumps just hearing that. All right, let's talk about what it is that we're going to be kind of really diving into deep on this episode. What are we talking about?
Yeah, so one thing that, we kind of talked a lot about, like, the things we were going to do at the beginning of this show, like at the beginning of the podcast, was like, we're going to do interviews with the people, we're going to talk about the movies, and we're going to get into kind of like the costuming and props, that whole thing. And that third promise we really haven't fulfilled too much. And today we're going to talk about
we haven't fulfilled any promises. We haven't done shit. We haven't fulfilled any promises. The fact that people are still watching us is amazing, and I thank you so much for doing that.
Well, we're going to try to fulfill this one today because we're kind of doing a Where Are They Now regarding some of our favorite Halloween props. Now, we could do these episodes. We could do a few of these because I only brought out a few props to talk about today. And the first one I wanted to bring up is one that you actually sent me. And this is the only one that is going to be in the show, but this is such a cool thing. It kind of happened in 2018 on michaelmyers.net, which I basically lived on from the ages of like 9 to 14. And this one completely swept under the rug for me. Never saw this until you sent it to me. And this is one of the coolest things for a true fan to own. And I went back. I don't know if you read the story, but I'm going to kind of go into a little bit of the story. It's not very long, but it's very cool. And this is the pumpkin from the opening sequence of Halloween 2, the Rick
OG.
Rosenthal. Yeah.
1981.
Or 1981. Did I say 1982?
I don't know what you said. I'm listening.
Yeah, that's fair. Either way, this is so cool. You can tell it's been resealed, but the skull is still in there. So this is coming. This was posted back in 2018 by a user by the name of Kirk Magnum on michaelmyers.net. And he tells a really cool story. It was at a Planet Hollywood for years and years by near where he visited and ate at Planet Hollywood. And then it went into storage. And this man or woman called this what's the name of that? Planet Hollywood. Planet Hollywood. And I might be right this is a I learned about this restaurant on this show many episodes back. But he called them every year for 20 years. 20 years. He called them and said, "Will you sell this to me?" And they said no. And he said, "Will you sell this to me 1 year later?" And they said no. He did that for 20 years. And finally, I don't know if they sold it to him or gave it to him for bugging the hell out of him. But this guy owns a 60-pound, prop pumpkin that at one time opened up to reveal the skull in there, and he's taken some pictures of the skull. I included that. One thing I did want to shout out is it looks squished on the PowerPoint here that I got. That's actually how the prop is, and in the top right you can kind of see that it is squished compared to the mask and the poster behind him. And I don't know if that was something where they needed to film it from an angle or something, and they stretched it in post.
It was shot in Panavision. That's why. It was shot in Panavision. So when they shot it in Panavision, it stretched it out. So it was designed specifically for that, to give it that effect. And it's obviously so big because the camera, as the skull is like kind of coming out of the pumpkin, the camera goes into the pumpkin in that shot. So it wasn't like this was some small little tiny pumpkin like you see, or that you would think you would see, like the pumpkin behind me. It was big because the whole camera had to go literally inside of that pumpkin. But yeah, it was shot in Panavision. That's why it's built the way that it's built.
That's very cool. And I didn't realize that. So when I looked at all these images, I was like, well, I kind of feel bad that this guy uploaded this really cool thing and all of his pictures kind of turned out squished. And then I started fixing them, and I was like, wait, why does the background now look messed up from what I did? And I don't know. It's just a really crazy thing of, obviously kind of a crazy story for a fan to end up with something like this.
It's so cool. I mean, this for me, probably obviously outside of like the hero mask, would probably be like the coolest thing to own
Yeah.
in the entire franchise because it's so iconic and everybody knows that pumpkin. Not only, fans of this franchise, but just anybody, like any horror fan knows that pumpkin. And yeah, just super cool. The fact that it even existed and was around for that long, like sadly, back in 1981, even though Halloween was a big deal and not obviously as big of a deal as it is today, but when they filmed this, they probably were just kind of like, we're killing off Michael at the end of this film. This is it, right? I mean, there's probably
Yep.
there's going to be no reason to save some of this stuff, which is I think the reason why like the hero mask was just given to Dick Warlock. Like Dick Warlock was just like Deborah Hill or John Carpenter or whoever it was just said, "Here, you can have it. We're done with it. We're not making any more of these films, so go ahead and have it." I'm guessing if they realized would have gone back and realized like, wow, no, actually, this thing is going to be much bigger than we ever imagined. They would have probably never let go of that mask or just given it to Dick Warlock the way that they did. But I think in this case, too, it's probably a very similar situation where, they probably didn't know what they had until now or until later on. And obviously it ended up in a Planet Hollywood, which is just super cool. But would be a really cool thing to see in person. There's no question about that.
Yeah. And it's crazy. It's been like, you can see on the left side of the eye, it's been sealed up from when it, obviously cracks open in the opening sequence, but just a really cool story and a really cool prop that exists to this day. So moving on, kind of grabbed a few different things that I ran across online that I thought were interesting or had a good story to them. Obviously, we got to talk about this because I don't know if we've really jumped into this prop. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but it's the OG. This is everything. This is the mask that started it all. We just talked about that it was given to Dick Warlock after Halloween 2. And what's crazy is it has now transferred ownership to a man by the name of Mark Roberts, who owns from Dick Warlock, not only the original mask, but the boots and scalpel from Halloween 2 as well. And it came as a package deal. And, I think anybody who sees this knows, obviously, the sad part is like, the shape it's in, pun intended or pun not intended. But, you and I have talked how this is a creepy mask in and of its own right. I know NAG makes one. I know there is another artist by the name of Fearcraft Studios who also makes a version of this,
which I want so bad, dude. I want that mask so bad. I've had it like in my cart. Like I've gone and actually said like, yes, give this to me. I think it was like $400. I was looking at, I think it was the Fearcraft one. And they have like a different version, like I don't want to say like a lesser cool version, but it's just like the very basic version. But it looks damn near just like this thing. I want it so bad. Like Fearcraft, if you're watching this, please make my dreams come true. It's almost my birthday. It's almost Christmas. I guess Christmas came.
The Christmas is coming up. And we did see the Fearcraft version in person at H45.
You did. Not me.
I didn't see it.
No, I was in line for somebody. And that's when you went and walked around by yourself. I didn't get to see it.
Well, go ahead and check out on Halloween Lives on YouTube because I do believe I took a video of it and it's in the video.
That's how I thought, yeah.
Yeah, I got to see it face to face, and I don't know if it was the creator of Fearcraft Studios wearing it, because I remember this was very early on in that coming out, but absolutely beautiful mask in person, and part of me wishes that's what they would have used for 2018.
Agreed.
So moving on to the next one, this one's pretty, when you think about it, because obviously we just looked at a 46-year-old mask here. With the OG shape mask. Now we're looking at the Halloween 4 mask, which came out, what
1988.
1988. So 36-year-old mask, which appears to be in much better shape than the original. Obviously, you've got signs of wear and tear here. I'm not sure if this was the Fangoria mask or if this was one of the heroes or the stunts used in that piece or in that film. But it is owned by a man, owner Paul, and I can't read it. It's
yeah, I can't read it either.
Paul Knott, I believe.
Yeah.
And this is it on display. And honestly, man, even though it's a little misshapen now, I think this is badass. Like, I think this is, again, kind of a creepier aged mask than what we did get in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's cool. What I like about it is if you look at the hair, you can see it was blonde. Like, you can very clearly see that it was blonde, which that mask was, and then they painted that hair. And you know, I'm sure people will know in Halloween 4 there's that one scene, right? I think it's at the school where Michael pops out and he's got the pink face and blonde hair mask. Or was it, is that how it was? It was like, yeah, skin tone and like blonde hair, right?
It's like
pink
a Captain Kirk.
Yeah, exactly. Job. It was just a huge mistake on their part. But I don't know that I've ever seen this picture before. I'll be honest.
I think it's held up extremely well for how long it's been around. And we're about to get into one that was not handled well, since it had been used. So, and I think it's this one. Yes.
Yeah.
So, this one was owned by Don Shanks. It's obviously the Halloween 5 Curse of Michael Myers mask. And similar to what we saw in person at H45, where Christopher Nelson had all 3 hero masks or all 3 masks from the trilogy, where you could touch him. I wasn't going to touch him in front of Christopher Nelson. He looked like a big dude who could kick my ass. But they were right there. And similar to how Christopher Nelson takes these things on tour, Don Shanks used to take these out. And I forgot to mention, Dick Warlock also used to have the hero mask out there, which is nuts.
There's a video of him of the mask at a convention in the 90s where somebody like is taking super detailed video of the mask from all different angles and stuff. And it's like, that must have been like, I can't even imagine getting to see that thing in person.
You gotta send me that video if you ever see it again.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it.
But yeah, that's kind of what Don Shanks was doing here, and you know, allegedly people were even putting it on. It was just open to the public, and you can see like there's a huge chunk out of, you know, the temple there. Obviously, the whole thing.
Rob Zombie Halloween 2 going on a little bit.
It does, and it's just really misshapen. And you know, Don Shanks. There's always a trouble when you have these kind of collector items. Is like, do you restore it and bring it back to its intended look, or do you know, leave the prop as it is, you know, as pure as it is? And ultimately, I think if it was the hero, which or the H1 hero, H2 hero as well, owned by Mark Roberts, you know, I think that one you almost just got to let do its thing and try to preserve it as best as you can. But one of the sequels like this, I'm so happy Don Shanks ended up giving it to Tom Spina Designs, who ended up restoring it and did a hell of a job. I mean, you look at the before and after, and it is night and day there. I think it was absolutely the right choice to get this one restored. And, you know, now we're going to have this prop to look at as fans for years to come that probably wouldn't have been there had Don just kind of let it go like it was.
Yeah, I think that's the struggle. I go back and forth in my head. I think you're totally right with like the original Michael Myers hero mask. Of course, like you just really just got to let that thing do its own thing. But I still struggle with if I was Don Shanks and I had this mask, I think I would want to make sure that, you know, it still kept its same, you know, it just kept its same look as the way that it was, and you just let it naturally age and try to take as best care of it as you can. And perhaps, I mean, looking at the H4 mask compared to this mask was probably handled a lot more than that mask was. But I don't know, man, I'd have a hard time really, you know, doing a whole lot to it, because I do think there's a part of me that's like, that's how it looked. And naturally it's going to rot over time and break down. And that's just the way that it is. but it is cool to see it, see it restored. I kind of wish that Don would have had it with him at age 45. He didn't.
Yeah.
But I'm going to guess based on how it looked in that picture on the left, it's probably very frail, very brittle. That latex is probably very hard. Like if you grabbed the corner of the mask or the bottom of the mask, the neck of the mask, you could probably like bend that back and forth and snap a piece of that off. That would be my guess. It's probably very hard and very brittle. So I get why he wouldn't want to. Would still be super cool to see it in person,
Yeah, 100%. It's you would need to really trust somebody to do an incredible job, which luckily was done on this mask. Next up, and this is actually the last slide I have, and this one's a little bit interesting to me. So first of all, there's a website called Your Props, where you can see lots of different screen used items for Halloween or for any franchise really. And when I was putting together slides for this deck, these two jumped out to me. First of all, we're going to talk about the one on the right because there's a little bit more story to that one that we know of. And that is the end scene of Halloween Resurrection, which we just talked about. This is clearly the stunt mask that was used for the scrapped ending where Freddy takes the axe, or is it Freddy or is it Sarah that?
I don't remember who it was. It's one of them. Yeah, it's one of them.
And Michael ends up meeting his demise by getting an axe to the forehead. But I love the burnt design, and I actually love the one that they went with that you see on screen even more because it's got more like yellows and greens in it. And I think it is just a really sweet looking mask. But I wanted to talk about the one on the left because this was a stunt mask. And let me read the description here. A production-made stunt mask that appears to have also been used for tests. That being said, it was not screen used, but it is production made. And obviously, Michael has a different wound here than anything we see happen in the film. So I wanted to talk with you about that because there's something going on here that we don't really have the answer to.
Yeah, I mean, the second you pulled it up, I was like, wait a second. The mask never looked like that. I mean, it obviously didn't really look like the one on the right either, but that was obviously from that scene, that deleted scene where he gets the axe to the head. But you never saw that much of Sarah, or of Michael's face, I should say. That much of Michael's face underneath the mask at any point in time. And I agree with you 100% that the mask that they used in that ending closeout scene of Halloween Resurrection, that is a sweet mask. That's a cool mask. I would love to get that mask made or have it made for me sometime or buy one. I just think it's really cool. But I mean, who knows? I mean, they might have been doing some sort of test shot or testing. Obviously, it looks like that mask, the most heat it took was over its right eye. I mean, I would assume that it just kind of burned away right there. So who knows? I mean, maybe there was a scene where as very similar to Halloween 2 in 1981, like they were burning up a mask and that area of the mask just melted away and because it took the most heat. But very interesting. Once again, I've never seen either one of those photos before either.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it in here, just because I saw this one. It caught me off guard. It is, it's got a plaque there, production used Michael Myers mask, but I'm sure an Uber fan probably has the story behind why this mask looks the way it does. If it was truly kind of like what you're saying, like a test to see how the mask burns in reality, or what this mask was supposed to be. But it is a really cool piece of movie history right there. And that kind of wraps up the different props and the where are they now, at least for this episode. I think this is easily a theme that we could come back to.
Yeah, we could talk about this all the time. I mean, there's a ton of that stuff out there. I mean, even just look at the big collection that Sean Clark has. I mean, that dude he has a lot of stuff from the Halloween franchise as well. So, yeah, dude, that's it's pretty cool. And I think the holy grail of all holy grails is definitely the hero mask. If you're a Halloween fan, I think owning that would be cool. Kind of crazy that thing just, is tucked away somewhere and really it's almost unfortunate. Like I would rather a dude like Sean Clark have that mask because he'd have it on display and people would be able to see it. And like at age 45, they would have had it in some glass display thing, and you would have been able to get up and see it, see it close up and take pictures and whatever. So it is kind of unfortunate that, the dude who owns it is truly like a private collector, and he doesn't want anybody to see it. But yeah, very cool stuff. I mean, there's a lot of it out there, and we can definitely do another episode if you guys enjoyed this. We can definitely do another episode on sort of those props that are still out there somewhere floating around, and a lot of people who have a lot more money than you or I get to own those things. So, someday, someday. Until then, I've got my Trick or Treat Studios ends mask right there. It means a lot to me. So now that's going to do it, guys. Episode number 82. It's October. We're doing our thing. We're going to be back once again next week talking about more Halloween stuff, because we love to talk about Halloween and Halloween on this podcast. And that's what we're going to do week after week. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I am Blaine Duncan. That is my brother, Austin. We'll see you guys next week.